Hi, my name is Brent Lyles. I'm a nonprofit consultant with Chicken Hill Solutions, and I'm also the grant writer and grants manager for NYOS Charter School in Austin, Texas. This is a series of videos about grants and grant writing and how do you do a grant. And by the time you finish this, you're going to be awesome at grants. We're going to talk about how to plan them, how to write them, how to do the follow-up and the reporting, all the different parts of it. You're going to be a super expert by the time we're done with this. I'm going to start with a quick story. I wrote my very first grant 25 years ago, and it was kind of a funny story because I was this volunteer intern with this startup museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called the Senator John Hines Pittsburgh Regional History Center. And I walked in the door and I was like, wow, this stuff is so cool. How can I help? And they said, do you know how to write? And I said, sure, I think so. I mean, I guess I'm a pretty good writer. And they said, great, here's this grant. We want you to write it. And I was like, I don't know how to write a grant at all. And they said, it's okay, just do it. So next thing you know, I'm writing this grant. And wouldn't you know it, I got the grant. It was over $100,000 and it helped launch this museum. Now, I tell that story for two reasons. One is that I got really lucky. You're not going to get every grant you apply for. But for me, they had already identified a grant opportunity that was a really, really good fit for what they were doing at the museum. And so when I was writing it, it just was falling together and I had all the answers to all the questions. It was just like peanut butter and jelly, man. And that's the reason we got the grant, because it was a really, really good fit. And that's why I say I got lucky, right? Like they set me up for success. The second reason I want to tell that story, though, is that I didn't know what I was doing. And just by watching this video, you're already about 3 steps ahead of where I was at that time. And let me tell you, if I can write a grant, you totally can too. You got this. So let's dive in. What is a grant? Now, often when people think of a grant, the first thing they think of is the money. Oh, it's money. And that's partly right. It is money. It is also a relationship because there's 2 parties involved, right? On one hand, there's you, and you've got this great program, or you're going to put this to work in the classroom. And on the other end is the grantor. That's the entity that has the money. And maybe it's a government agency, or maybe it's a corporation that has a corporate foundation, or maybe it's a family that has a family foundation or a community foundation. Anyway, that's the grantor. And then there's you. And the grant is really the relationship between those two. Often it's actually written out as a contract. The grantee says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z with this money, and here's what that looks like, here's what the impact's going to be. And the grantor is the one that says, that sounds really cool, that's a great place for us to invest our money to make an impact and make a difference in the world. And so don't just think of a grant as a money, think of it as that relationship between the grantee and the grantor. Flowing in one direction is the money, you're getting the money, but flowing back to the grantor is impact. When I think about a grant, I think about 4 steps of a grant. I'm going to go through those steps, and in later videos we'll do them in greater detail. First of all is planning. You want to make sure that you are planning, and this isn't planning the grant application, this is planning the program. All the little details about how you're going to run that program and what it's going to cost and how you're going to evaluate whether you had a good impact. All of that has to happen before you're ready to write, before you're even ready to look for grants. So planning is step 1. Now that you've got your amazing plans together, you're ready to go out there and see if you can find some grant opportunities or some requests for proposals, RFPs, that are going to be a really good fit for your program. And that's where you're doing the research. You're finding those prospects that are a really good fit for what you want to do. And there's several different ways to do that. There's different tools. What you're looking for is that fit. Somebody who really is excited about the work that you're going to propose. Once you've done the research and you've got your perfect grant opportunity and you're ready to write that grant application, or maybe you've got 4 or 5 good grantors that you'd write and you're going to do applications to all of them, it's time to sit down and write. Often there's going to be very detailed instructions about what questions they want answered and all of that stuff. And you are wanting to kind of put your best foot forward on this and also put yourself in their shoes, right? Think of it, they've got this money that they want to see to go to a good cause. Think about what their motivations are and how you can kind of tap into that and tap into their excitement about the kind of program that you're doing. Planning, research, and writing. So now you've written the thing, you've submitted it, and you're waiting to hear back. Are you going to get it? I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Either way, there's going to be follow-up. Now, the follow-up is going to be really important even if you don't get the grant. So let's say you don't get it. You call them up and you say, hey, thanks for considering this. What can we do differently next time? And the information you get back is going to be gold. Like, that's so helpful. If you do get the grant, then of course you're saying thank you, but you're also, how are you going to report to them? And often in a grant, there's going to be requirements about the reporting stuff that you have to turn into them. But it's more than that, right? Reporting is about showing that impact. And it gets to the bigger picture here. It gets back to that idea of a grant as a relationship. That's what the follow-up is when you get a grant. It's showing them that you've done what you said you were going to do, and here's what you achieved. Here's the impact. So those are the different parts of a grant. We're going to talk about each of those in a little more detail in the next videos coming up.